Okay, let's dive in.
Yeah, let's do it.
Today we're digging into something pretty fascinating. It's a proposed way to understand how people react.
When they hear stuff that really challenges what they believe.
Exactly. You know, that really uncomfortable feeling when something just clashes hard with your worldview.
Yeah, classic cognitive dissonance.
Right. But this source we're looking at today, it takes that internal feeling.
It looks at how it shows up, like externally, in behavior.
Precisely. It's a paper from an independent researcher, actually, and it suggests this thing called the Cognitive Dissonance Analysis Formula. C.D.A.F for short.
Okay, C.D.A.F. And the core idea is...
Well, based on watching thousands, literally thousands, of online interactions.
Wow, okay.
The idea is that when people hit that really challenging info, their reactions aren't random. There's a pattern, a predictable sequence of behaviors.
Huh. That's interesting. So not just lashing out randomly, but specific steps.
Kind of seems that way, yeah. So the mission for this deep dive is basically to unpack this proposed formula.
And see what it might suggest about why we, or people we see online, get so resistant sometimes.
Yeah, resistant to new or, well, uncomfortable ideas.
Okay, so let's get into it. This formula, it has stages.
It does, and this is where it gets really interesting. The paper lays out 6 stages, almost like a progression.
A journey someone goes on when faced with something that feels like a threat to how they see the world.
Right. So imagine you're scrolling online, right, and you see something, a fact, an argument, that just fundamentally contradicts a belief you hold dear.
Okay.
According to this C.D.A.F idea, the very first reaction often isn't actually engaging with the substance of the information.
So what is it then?
Well, what's fascinating, and maybe not surprising if you spend time online, is that the first defense is often personal. The paper calls stage 1 ad hominem dismissal.
Attacking the messenger.
Exactly. You see it constantly. Instead of debating the point, the reaction is to attack the person sharing it. Labels get thrown around.
Idiot, shill, conspiracy theorist, that kind of stuff.
All of that. The insight here, the paper suggests, is that discrediting the source is like the brain's quick fix. It's a low-effort way to just dismiss the challenging info without having to actually think about it.
Right, like putting up an immediate firewall.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, so if attacking the person doesn't shut it down, what's next?
Then you might see the defense shift a bit. Stage 2 is called epistemic arrogance and appeals to authority.
Okay, break that down. Epistemic arrogance.
It's basically someone saying, look, I just know better because, maybe because of their job or their education or just because.
Right, and the appeal to authority part.
That's leaning on established figures or institutions, well, the mainstream experts say you're wrong, so.
So I don't need to engage with your point.
Exactly. It's trying to feel right again, trying to restore that comfort by aligning with what they see as like knowledge power structures, dismissing the challenge based on who said it or where it came from, not what was said.
Okay, so stage 1, attack the person. Stage 2, pull rank or cite the big names. What if the challenging information still persists?
If those don't work, the paper suggests the reaction digs in deeper. Stage 3, confirmation bias and entrenchment.
The doubling down phase.
Totally. This is where you see it get visibly entrenched. Emotions might ramp up. You might see someone asserting claims as just undeniable fact, even if they're easily shown to be wrong.
Or they bring in stuff you can't even argue against logically, like beliefs that can't be proven or disproven.
Precisely. The paper frames it as pure ego defense, just digging the heels in harder to protect that belief that's under threat, actively ignoring anything contradictory, clinging only to what fits.
Often with more emotion, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so digging in. What if that doesn't resolve the dissonance or end the argument?
Then comes stage 4, illusory demand for evidence.
Illusory? How so? It sounds like they're asking for proof, which seems reasonable.
Well, it looks like asking for proof. Show me the studies. Where's your peer-reviewed data? But the observation in the paper is that this often isn't like a genuine quest for truth.
So it's more of a tactic.
It can be, yeah. Maybe to exhaust the other person, make them do endless work. Or sometimes they've already decided they'll only accept evidence from a tiny pre-approved list of sources.
Sources that already confirm their existing view.
Right, which makes the demand for evidence effectively illusory. They're not really open to being convinced by evidence that contradicts them.
Okay. Setting an impossible bar or moving the goalposts. I can see how that fits the pattern of defense.
And, online especially, this stuff rarely happens in a vacuum. Which brings us to stage 5.
Let me guess, the pile-on.
You got it. Stage 5 is social contagion and group validation. Super common. Others who share the challenged belief jump into the conversation.
the echo chamber effect in action.
Exactly. They reinforce the dismissal, maybe through synchronized comments, mocking the challenger together, or just overwhelming the dissenting voice with sheer numbers.
It becomes a group defense, not just individual.
Yeah, the paper connects it to social identity theory. When the individual feels shaky, the group provides the shield. They validate each other and use that collective force to push back the uncomfortable information.
Okay, so we've gone through attacking the person, pulling rank, digging in, demanding impossible proof, and then the group reinforcement. What's left? What's the final stage if the dissonance is just too much?
Stage 6, disengagement and information avoidance. Pretty much. When all the other defenses have been tried or maybe haven't worked well enough, the person just retreats.
What does that look like online?
It could be blocking the source of the information, maybe reporting their content, or just ghosting, vanishing from the conversation entirely.
So the ultimate goal wasn't really debate or truth-seeking.
The paper suggests the ultimate goal in this pattern is often protecting the existing belief system. And the final step is just removing the source of the challenge. Avoid the information altogether.
Wow. Okay, so just to recap this C.D.A.F idea, it's proposing this like 6-stage journey.
Yeah, a sequence of what looks like increasingly desperate defenses when someone encounters information online that clashes hard with their worldview.
Starting with dismissal of the source.
Then appealing to authority or status.
Then digging in with bias.
Demanding proof they won't accept.
Getting back up from the group.
And finally, just disengaging. Avoiding it.
It's presented as this predictable path observed from real online behavior.
What's really striking about it, I think, is how it frames these reactions not necessarily as rational debate, but more as, well, psychological defense mechanisms.
Playing out visibly, almost like clockwork, in response to cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, and thinking about this pattern, it could potentially help you navigate some of those really tricky online conversations.
Or even just evaluate your own reactions when you come across something that challenges you.
Yeah.
Recognizing if maybe you're slipping into one of these stages yourself.
Definitely. We're just seeing these patterns play out around you.
So maybe a final thought to leave you, the listener, with.
Yeah.
If resistance to challenging information can follow such a predictable, almost formulaic pattern,
Yeah.
what does that really imply about, say, critical thinking in our current information age?
Good question. And what does it mean for how we should maybe share challenging ideas or how we receive them?
Right. How much of our response is genuine, thoughtful processing versus just an automatic defense kicking in, something to chew on?